One of the less understood classes of drag racing by the public is pro stock. Now these cars produce 1200 odd horsepower, they cover the quarter mile super efficiently, but they tend to go straight down the middle or get wild and loose and have to shut down. As a result, sometimes the public don't realise how much work and how much money is involved in these things. We decided to have a chat with Jason Hedges with his Deco Glaze team just about what's involved with these pro stock cars. Jason, what was it about pro stock that attracted you to that category?
You know what, I got asked that question on the way up here from Sydney yesterday by my young crew fella. And I said I was sitting on the lounge, it was 2007, watching NHRA, and I was watching the onboard footage of those guys and thinking, how hard is it to drive one of those cars straight? And it was from that I thought, I started looking on the internet, looking at cars, and I raced a Super Sedan XY Falcon, which is automatic and all good fun. I thought, man, this is really, really hard. It's a driver's class as well as the crew have to be there. You can't just turn up by yourself. And I just got the bug from that. I thought I like things that are really hard and the challenge,
Well, let's talk a bit about pro stock itself. Different to any other sort of drag racing vehicle we have in the sport. The engines, 400 cube, naturally aspirated. How much development goes into those?
It's endless, I suppose. It's one of those things that pro stock guys and engine builders are, yes, we've made good power, but what can we do to make more power? So it can be from valve train, valves, heads, pistons, everything changes. So the forever chase of making power, but then also once, as I found out in Sydney, you make more power, then you can hurt parts as well. So you've got to find that balance of being reliable with good power.
When you're on the dyno, what would you consider a good gain in horsepower?
Wow, that is a great question, Rob. And sometimes it's not just horsepower, like we think about horsepower, but then we look at foot-pounds of torque. These cars are manually shifted, so it's how the engine can recover after you pull the gear, and it recovers when the RPM drops, how quick it can accelerate back into the next gear. So it's a lot about the power curve as well, not the overall power. So where it makes most power, what RPM in a pro stock motor, I think that's where all the engine builders are trying to find.
I've never had an engine builder that will actually tell me how much power they're making. Will you give me a range?
Yeah, they're about 1200 now. I think the boys, everyone's around 1180, 1200 horsepower, somewhere around there. That's overall, peak horsepower. But again, where does it make the power? In what RPM range when you pull the gears in these cars? How quick the power recovers.
Okay, you've got a 5-speed gearbox and you're shifting literally with a lever.
Yes, just with a manually lever, no clutch. So we let the clutch out to leave off the start line, and then you just, when that shift light comes on, you just bang that gear and rip it in as hard as you can and just smash through those gears as quick as you can. They're all done in 3.8 seconds, I think.
How important is it at what revs you change?
Oh, critical, as I mentioned, about where the engine recovers and makes the most power, and then how quick I can react to see the light and shift the gear. That's critical, because if you go over rev it, you've missed that power curve and you can blow the clutch out of the car as well. If you under rev it, you can slip the clutch and not go forward. So it is critical. That shift light, always a big, bright, fancy light. When I shift, when I see that light and the delay to get that, and my crew chief and my tuners tuning the computer to the light, to me, to my reactions. Every gear I react different. Obviously on the first gear change, you'll have to react quicker. As you're getting through the gears, when you put in top gear, you're much more comfortable, and you usually 1-to-1, you can bang it as soon as the light comes on. So very important.
How quick between when you drop the clutch are you shifting first to second?
The first gear change is at 0.9 of a second.
0.9?
0.9 of a second, that light will come on, and we're doing about 100 kilometres an hour in that first shift. So I think it pulls about 3 Gs off the clutch launch. So it all happens pretty quick.
So first, second, third, fourth?
Yeah.
How quick before you've made that fourth change and you're in top gear?
I think it's about 3.8 seconds is when you hit top gear.
So a bit over halfway down the run.
Just about half track usually if you're banging right on halfway, yeah.
Pro stock, it's, as you say, it's a driver's class. Anyone that's ever been in one loves them. There's no question about that. Where they sit in the sport, some people think that maybe they're a cheaper option than something like supercharged Pro Alky or the Pro Slammers.
Well, yes, it is a driver's class, and just on that first part, it's not just the driver. Like, I got 5 lads in there, and those guys, their job. We got a young fella starting with us today, and I'm talking about tyre pressures, quarter pound here, wheelie bar heights. That can make or break the race. So everybody's job, they have to do their job. They've got to be precision people. So that's what I like about the class.
The funding?
The funding, it ain't cheap. These cars, carbon fibre body cars and the motor, the transmission, the rear ends, the spares, the tools. It's a big concern. It is definitely not, I dare tell you right now, it's not the cheapest class in Group 1.
So the investment's right up there with the other categories.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Now, what about the fuel? I mean, you guys, the class is a gasoline, a petrol class, but there's petrols ain't petrols, are they?
No, it's not.
The exotic fuels.
These exotic fuels, yeah, because fuel makes power, and of course Pro Stock guys want power, so the fuel we use is quite pricey as well. We use about 4 or 5 litres each pass, and we carry a couple of 20-litre drums with us when we come racing. So
how much a litre?
Well, I think, yeah, we pay about $400 for 20 litres. So I haven't got my calculator brain on right now, so if you want to work that out.
That's dearer than nitromethane.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that. There you go. Good point. So yeah, it's there, yeah.
Pro Stock seems to go in ebb and flow. Sometimes we've got 16, 17 cars turning up, and another time we're really struggling for numbers. What's your take on that?
My take on, I was also asked that question yesterday, and look, I got into the Pro Stock class about 7 years ago, and it was pretty lean then with numbers. Then it spiked up, and we had like 23, 24 cars, and then it's dropped off. I think we find that in all forms of, drag racing. Some classes get too tough, too hard. Funding, sponsors, family, things sort of change. I think we're in that little low point now, but I really believe with what IHRA is doing, and especially today, this all-run, or tomorrow, the all-run format will bring a lot of guys back out, and I really truly believe the next 2 years Pro Stock will be back up high in numbers again, back to our 16-car fields, which we campaigned and got 4 or 5 years ago. And so yeah, there's a lot of cars sitting in sheds. There's still a lot of good cars, good powered motors. So I like you, I really can't wait to get them out. And maybe it's going to take us Pro Stock guys to get on the phone and give these guys a kick up the backside and say, get them out of the shed and come back racing.
Well, this weekend, as you say, it is the 3-round format. So while we've only got 4 cars, you're virtually going to turn around and all 4 cars come out every round of racing. Yeah. So the fans are still going to see some good matchups, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And the Tremaines and Porter's having a race too. Great cars, great races. So look, I love the all-round format because it gives guys and your sponsors as well more exposure, and you get to come out and get more laps and get more time, because we spend all this money for what, 6.9 seconds on a racetrack over 3 passes. We've come all the way to Queensland for like 21 seconds of racing. So yeah, the more times we can get out there, we can learn, we can test, and yeah, it's good for the sport, it's good for the drivers, good for the fans.
So you see a good future for Pro Stock?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We won't give up. The die-hard Pro Stock guys, we'll still be here, and it'll always be here. It's a great class. It is a great class. I invited the fans down in Sydney. Come and have a look at what we do between rounds, pulling transmissions out, clutches out, drive shafts out, wheels off. We've got an hour to turn these cars around. Yes, we're not top fuel and pull motors apart, but have a look at what else we do in this car to get it around and get it back out there.
Well, thanks very much for telling us about your team, and of course, good luck this weekend.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate your time. Thanks, Rob.